Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. I'm once again grateful for being here today with you as we continue to go for this amazing book. I want to take this opportunity to ask the spirits of light responsible for this work to continue to inspire us through this journey. We officially begin today the second half of the book. So we start on chapter 16 out of 30 chapters of the Wake Up and Be Happy. If this is the first time you join us, this is the 8th book from the psychological series by spiritual author Joanna de Angelis. For the Solitude Center for Spiritual Living, this is actually our first book, and we're having two different study groups, one in Portuguese every Tuesday and one in English every Sunday. It is accessible via YouTube or Facebook for those of you who cannot be here Sunday morning. I find it, as I mentioned perhaps before, that each chapter that I read, I am met with a powerful and impactful message that is inviting us all to really consider the aspects of our lives in messages that are so beautiful. And I hope you agree with my interpretation of all the contents of the book. Shall we start? Let's go to the next slide. And we're just going to go briefly to let you know that today we're going to cover all about peace, right? What does it take? And it's not an easy message because Joanna is very pointed to us. It's up to you guys, she says in my mind's eye. It's up to you guys to be peaceful, to attain peace, right? And that means, of course, as the title alludes to, the struggles for the attainment of peace. It takes a struggle. It's not a given to us. So in the very next few minutes, we'll go over the following topics. As you can see, a little bit about, actually, the majority of the time, we're going to talk about complaints or complaining, right? Then we'll talk a little bit about achievements, and we move on with peace. So let's go on to the next slide, and we're going to stay here for quite a bit. That's not the first time that excuse me, that Joanna brings the notion that we humans, right, human beings, were created to love. We were created to be loved. And as such, we were created with a sense that we should not complain. We should not demand. We should not lose ourselves in the sense of self-pity, right? So she does alert us to the fact that any and all forms of complaint, and I'm going to explain further, but any and all forms of complaint are really unnecessary to our well-being. And yet we do it, right? We do it over and over again. And complaining, she tells us, it's a bifurcation of sorts, will either lead us to have this projection of a sense of superiority. How so? Well, I am worthy much more than what was given to me, therefore I have the entitlement to complain. You see that, right? The other side of it, which is the opposite, it's the sense of inferiority. I need your compassion because I suffer and my pain is so great that I cannot take it with it. So either I'm entitled, or I'm not strong enough to deal. Therefore, I can complain because life is just too hard. So you start to see that, right? Either spectrum is not a good one to be. And I would like to just take a moment to refer to Allan Kardec's Gospel According to Spiritism, specifically chapter 5. In chapter 5, which is from the Sermon of the Mount, blessed are the afflicted, right? We are confronted with the same but different way of looking at complaining. And I wanted to share with you because it's very interesting. Jesus, in the Sermon on the Mount, as Matthew tells us, he said, happiness is not of this world. All right, Jesus, happiness is not of this world. Does it mean that I am not ever going to be happy? Well, let's break down what he says with that sentence. He says, from that spiritual lens, we are never to be seen as either victims or perpetrators. And I go back to that bifurcation, right? Superiority, inferiority, victim, or perpetrator. He says, no, none of this. Our life is exactly as it should be. And more than that, it is based on what we call a life project that we designed. And we designed that life project to either expiate or to learn in this incarnation. So even though we know, or most of us know, right? We complain. It's almost inevitable, the sense of we complain constantly. Isn't that right? We are not happy. And when we attain a level, what I call like, oh, my goals are X and I'm there, something happens and oops, we are now complaining because who moved my cheese? If you go back to that interesting book written so many years ago, right? And if we are, something changes in our lives that now we are in a state of perturbation, a state of lack of being sure, etc. We are uncomfortable with the new situation. But if that's not the case, then we put ourselves within that notion that I can compare. Well, somebody else is richer than me. Why? Or somebody else is better looking than me. Why? Somebody else is more powerful. And why? And it's not fair, so on and so forth. Blessed are the afflicted, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. When Jesus told us that, what did he mean exactly? I'm sure he was not talking about our petty creations of comparing ourselves to everybody who's better looking, more powerful, richer, healthier, etc., right? What did he mean? Well, Jesus did not refer, blessed are all of those who suffer, right? He said, blessed are the afflicted. He did not say, blessed are you who suffer, because we all suffer, all of us. But what he meant, and the gospel according to Spiritism is very clear on that, what he meant is that very, very, very few of us who suffer, right? All of us suffer somehow, but very few of us who suffer really, really understand, internalize that trials which have been handled, supported, gone through well, can lead us to the kingdom of heaven, right? So let me just repeat that. He meant that very few of us who suffer really understand that only trials which have been well handled will lead us to the kingdom of heaven. My question to you, my question to myself is, do we suffer well? Are there even mechanisms to help us, support systems? Are there anything that may be available to us to help when, okay, I'm suffering. Okay, I'm not suffering well. Okay, I need help. Help, help. I want to suffer well. Are there mechanisms that will help us? And I say, yes, prayers. Prayer will help our souls go through anything. But wait, that is not enough. All right? What beyond prayer can help us? Well, we do need to have faith. And that faith is that God will never, ever desert us. In God's infinite mercy, infinite love to us, we will never, ever be left alone. And um, Jesus said to us, right? We should also know that our burden is always in proportion to our own strength. So we are all strong enough and able enough and capable to face whatever is coming to us, the ups and the downs. And the final thing that Jesus meant when he said, blessed are the afflicted, and that's a zinger, right? Is he also meant the harder the struggle, the greater the reward. How about that? So just to summarize, blessed are the afflicted who have the opportunity and the occasion, the situation to prove that their faith, their strength, their perseverance, and their resignation or submission to the will of God, right? And we say that because by doing that, God, Jesus tells us that we will have multiplied our happiness 100 times. So happiness is not of this world, but when we suffer well, and I put a quotation mark, when we suffer well, when we exercise everything in a way that is good, then we will guarantee not just our happiness, but 100 times more than what would have been. I digress, right? I digress. But go back to chapter 16. In the chapter 16, Joanna talked about the same thing from a different angle. And we read in this chapter that there's a reference to fate or destiny are elements within our control. Oh, what? Fate? I control fate? I control destiny. Yes, we do have this amazing thing, this powerful thing called free will. And as such, we have the freedom to choose and the freedom to change our lives. And with that, I just need to reference a little bit Allan Kardec again, not in the Gospel According to Spiritism, but now the Spirit's book. If you go to book 3, Moral Laws, chapter 10, you can read a beautiful discussion on the law of freedom or law of liberty. It describes the various aspects of various types of freedom that we have, such as freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and free will specifically. It also talks about the notion of determinism, or what some people may even call it karma. In that chapter, we'll find a very, very interesting discussion around freedom and the inherent nuances to this concept of freedom, which includes, I might have to tell you, the notion of how much control we have in what many would call it fatalism, right? Free will, fatalism, free will or determinism, free will or karma. So, very, very broadly speaking, now we find that discussion around free will include topics like, oh, how we are influenced, and not just influenced by our parents or our neighbor or our peer group, but also how we're influenced by the spirits that surround us, right? They mention in here, in this chapter, it is mentioned that we need to be very intentional about how we, and I'm going to quote, air quote again, my apologies for that, but how we exhale, right? How we exhale through our own mental waves, our energies coming out, right? Our how we bring forth and exhale our own sense of emotion, our thoughts, our actions, our feelings. And understanding that prayer, as I mentioned before, but also awareness or vigilance are the most powerful mechanism we have to remain in control of who can or cannot influence us. Again, in both material and spiritual dimensions. So, finally, in this discussion, and it's just so rich, right, is the idea of the law of action and reaction. Why? Well, this law translates our responsibility to understand and actually to exercise our free will, and that includes our thoughts, right? Our free will to think, our free will to act, to say things. So from each of that is exercised through our freedom to choose, there is also a responsibility to handle, to deal with the reaction of any of that. So law of action and reaction. And in the words that is much more common to us all is the idea that we reap what we sow. So if we look into that, and Joanna mentions specifically, love the term, by the way, the harvest of blessings, right? So when she refers that the ability for us to harvest all the blessings, she says that we must focus on the what, but also on the how we sow. And to do that, we must prepare to harvest to the outcome of all of our efforts. So, in conclusion to this discussion, the outcome, which is that attainment of peace, right, that will involve effort, energy, and struggles, but will guarantee what we get in the end, which is peace. She closes this part of this chapter with a call to action. She invites us all, and I want to echo her invitation here, to ensure any and all efforts. We're talking about we're sowing something, right? Our goals for the harvest of blessings that comes later. But she says, in doing that, we must imbue, we must immerse everything we do with love. And I ask, well, Joanna, how do we do this, right? She tells us, oh, it's simple. As we're doing things, be patient. As we do things, do with love, right? And most importantly, keep on fighting. Keep on fighting to achieve our goals. So persistence, love, patience, tolerance. And she says, you and I will be blessed during harvest later on. So let's go to the next slide. And we're going to talk a little bit about achievements. And I love it because, on one hand, she starts the chapter with all the struggles, right? Well, she continues to talk about the struggles as she pertains to the notion of achievement. When we discuss, as a matter of fact, we pause to think, to reflect, to discuss what do we want to achieve, right? What should our goals be? To what end should you and I fight? Right? What? Tell me more. I'm lost. Well, Joanna gives us the answer. It is all about tranquility or peace. It's about avoiding getting trapped in the mental and emotional whirlwind that life often leads us. Did you hear me? This comes from Joanna. It is about tranquility. Who can say, I am peaceful today? I am peaceful tomorrow. I am peaceful every day. I certainly cannot. Our daily responsibilities, our daily bread, if you will, often presents to us problems to resolve, crises, small or big, issues, negativity. And that is most likely those items will surround us with all the energy that it's part of this whirlwind, right? And Joanna really takes the time to caution us that the mental and emotional whirlwind, this mental and emotional whirlwind, may lead us to losing our sense of self. And she cautions us that we may find ourselves just hurting too much. And when we are hurting so much, we may actually lose, right, as a result, lose our hope, our courage, the desire to keep on fighting. So remember, her call to action is love, patience, tolerance, and the courage to keep on fighting. So she keeps really probing that, right? We should not lose our faith. We should not lose our hope so that we do not lose our will to fight. She remembers that even that's terrible, by the way, but she remembers even when we have the best of the best intentions, right? And I think about it, the end of the year, and we come to reflect upon our year that passed, and we think, oh, next year I would do X, Y, and Z. This is our list of next year's intentions, right? When we actually feel good and we plan to do all of this, and Joanna even calls us that we plan to join the so-called winners, right? When we say, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I have a new opportunity, a new place of living, a new situation in life, a new marriage, a new child, whatever." The next outcome of your life may be, and we are confident, and we feel that all around us, the people that are powerful, confident, accomplished everything. And Jonah says, wait. Because we feel we fall prisoners and prey to our own demise, we carry with us, we bring with us our own issues, no matter what situation it may be. And I can certainly understand when Joanna refers to that notion of bringing our struggles to new situations or new opportunities. And because we bring our own struggles, that's who we are. That's our baggage, right? We bring our backpack full of rocks to a new race, metaphorically speaking. But by doing this, we may take with us potential conflicts and those types of situations that we feel follow us throughout our lives. So I pause here to ask you and ask myself as well. Have we ever considered the phrase "we are our worst enemy"? If not, hmm, another question: have we ever complained that life is unfair? Have we ever said or felt that we feel that we're always under some dark clouds of problems that keep following us, right? Have we ever thought about how the life of the people around us seem to be better, seem to be somehow free of my challenges or my conflicts? We do, right? We do that. Most of us do that. And Joanna comes right back and tells us we need to adjust how we see ourselves in the world around us. And I say, yeah, we do. We do need to change or adjust how we see ourselves in the world around us. But Joanna, how do we do that? And she says, well, just change the focus, change the lens. So I brought my glass here just to represent that. Let's put a different glasses and see life from a different focus, right? We often, because we live in a material world, we only see things from a material lens of a problem. But she invites us to perhaps look from an intellectual lens, an emotional lens, a psychological lens, and lo and behold, a spiritual lens. And for what I mean by that, the spiritual lens is simply put looking at a problem from a multi lifetimes, from the immortality of the spirit, of the soul. Things shift dramatically. And I was just thinking out loud, what are some of the problems that come easy to our mind when we think that we can change the lens by which we see that? Well, the child that is being bullied in school, right? Or next door neighbor who we look at it and has everything we want, but is depressed and unhappy. Like, oh, not fair. If I only had that, I would not be this way. Or having a professional life where the co-workers around is just not the best that we would like, so on and so forth. There's so many different situations that when we change the lens by which we see things, things get better, right? So it's all about shifting our perspective and understanding and having that awareness. So just to finalize this topic as we're coming to closure today, Joanna reminds us that to begin with that, we are inheritors of we inherit our own predicament, right? So what she means by that, and this is my translation, by the way, of what she means by that is the notion that if we complain every day about our jobs, oh, I hate it, oh, I don't want it, I'm there, but I'm not really fully present. What do you think it will happen when we lose the job? We will complain about it again. Now I don't have a job, right? And she shifts that, my example, but she shifts into the idea that if and when we don't commit to something, right? That means we don't have the discipline. We don't have the effort, the desire to continue to do what our goals are. And we may end up with false starts. Those who are eager will get there before us. And no, this is not a race, but they will. So Joanna concludes this topic with the notion that every achievement is the product of our effort, dedication, and perseverance. So I have 1 more minute to finalize. So let's go to the next slide. And it's now that we talked about perseverance and achievement, right? How to attain peace? And and it's all about this message of uh, to do that, we need to change how we see ourselves, to adjust how we see ourselves. And it's very interesting here, and I just want to take a minute to say that even though this book was authored in 1996, right, it's very timely because it specifically talks about social media and, for example, 1,000 messages of encouragement that we may receive through the channels in social media, right? Or the amazing, excellent apps that is out there to help us with meditation, visualization, and even getting a better mental state. We talk about headspace, calm, etc., etc. And she even says, wait, that's not enough, because I see her like poking us to say, have you also considered a good book? Have you considered service, charitable activities? All of those things will help us. So she says, all of those are your callings to peace. Are we receptive to any of those? Or we close ourselves and prefer to waddle, if you will, in our own pain, to feel in this sense of discomfort and deal with content of messages, of ideas, right? That's very toxic, such as gossiping or getting a negative interpretation of everything that happens to you, or spending a day after another without a real purpose and complaining about everything and being unhappy and having a poor state of mind. So, just for all of us, Joanna closes this chapter giving this caution, right? This is alert. If, big if we really want peace, all we have to do is to listen to God. And she says we do this by removing all the debris, the trash, everything that we collect in our mental soil, right? And she says, let us till, let's clear all that is in our mind and really look at it from a soil, right, that we may be neglecting, but sow it and fertilize it with love and charity. Let's also put the seeds of rational faith. Let's add it the words of Jesus. Let us also add it with our own understanding of our own immortality. So, finalize by fighting to attain and preserve our peace. So when we invest our energy and when we really pay the cost for the harvest of blessings waiting for us. So I just say for all of you, and I know I'm a few minutes over, is that I want to thank you for being here. And thank you for uh, breaking down the contents of chapter with me. I will see you next Sunday, same time, and we'll go over chapter 17, rehabilitation techniques. Until then, hope you have a very, very